pull up the you guys can pull up the chat as well. And so we should be live now. Let's see, I'm going to pull it up as well. Yep, pull up the and so we should be live now.
Okay, cool.
Pull up the I think one of your guys is, or one of you guys listening to it with the volume.
Oh, I just
and so we should be live now. Oh,
uh-oh.
That might be my computer. Hold on. There we go. I think I got it.
Cool.
All right, awesome. All right. So we're here today with Chris and Zakil, two friends of mine from the community. We've started a podcast together, which you guys should go check out if you're interested, where we just kind of like hang out and talk cards, talk collecting, buying, selling, talk about philosophy. Basically anything we want to talk about on our minds. Very like casual, laid back podcast. But yeah, if you're interested in that, and we're also always looking for like feedback and questions and things and topics you want us to cover and ideas you want us to cover there. Do you have a link to it? I could give them a link.
Yeah, we also have a new episode going out right after this. So let me I'll throw you the link here in a second.
Yeah, we'll have episodes every Sunday. So double Sunday content.
Sorry, I'm also plugging this on Twitter just so people can come by.
Yeah. And I'm just fixing the video. I guess while we do that, Chris, why don't you start by just kind of introducing yourself a little bit for people who may not know you yet. And we can go from there.
Sure thing. So I go by the username Wolf of Tin Street. Usually I come mainly from a Magic background. That's kind of where I got started. And I think probably my biggest thing is I'm a data engineer by trade. That's just what I do. So what I kind of just got into when I started getting into TCGs and CCGs and just collectibles in general was that none of the tools that I wanted to be out there existed. So it was really just going out, getting the data, creating pipelines, and creating just the tools that I wanted, tracking the number of sellers, what sold, how often it was. So I definitely have more, I would say, a tech and or data background than I think Zakil or Jake. And so I've really built my entire strategy for buying and selling and flipping stuff. So that's a little bit of my background. And, recently I've been reaching more into, flesh and blood. I've been reaching out more into other collectible markets. So a little bit about me. Zakil, you want to give it a go?
Yeah. So I think same story as kind of most people in the hobby. Grew up with cards back in the day. Played everything Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. Later ended up into
I've really
sorry, there was an echo there. And just like really hanging out, like had the experience, lived the game, collected all that stuff through time. And towards the end of high school, college, I said, hey, this is probably 10 years ago. Hey, this is something that I really enjoy doing. And I realized that I could make money just kind of flipping and kind of investing at the time. Also during that same period, I was super into sneakers, and I would buy a booster box and then realize that I could buy a booster box, break down the cards, buy collections, and then get a second booster box and kind of churn that. And kind of 10 years later, it's grown into a pretty nice sized investment portfolio and a little eBay store, TCG player store, and I'm now managing close to, if not over, 6 figures of capital and assets, and just having fun, hanging out, and chilling with everybody else. So
what are some of your like prized possession cards, Zakil? What have you sort of worked up to?
Yeah, so I won't share everything. The two the two crown jewels. I have an Alpha Lotus which I spent like a long time, just trading and doing all that stuff to grab. And then on the Yu-Gi-Oh side, I'm trying to complete a full PSA 10 first edition set of everything from LOB to PSV. I'm only like 20% of the way there, but just kind of hanging out, having fun. So
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's great having you guys on. Let's see. So Basic Trainer says in late first Rock Pokemon says, so will you guys be launching a course soon for $29.97?
we need to.
Have you guys seen the course that Collector's Cash is offering?
I haven't.
No.
I haven't. I saw the thumbnails. A couple people. I think Z&G did a video on it.
Yeah.
I haven't watched them yet, but I gotta check it out. I've heard some chatter in the Discords.
Yeah, I bought.
This sounds fun.
So I got it. I got an email. I was on their email list, I guess, and offering me the course. And yeah, it's like just your pretty standard course that you would see like for any sort of like investing crypto stocks that you might find in the online guru course space. Yeah, Z had
I kind of want to see this now just so I can see the way they're trying to show people to attack it, because that's always curious to me.
Yeah, I mean, Z definitely made a couple of points I agree with, just around the like, you don't need knowledge, you don't need an interest in Pokemon, you don't need Pokemon experience. I'll give you like the one secret tip that will make you rich. Like that it's that vibe.
Oh
in
no.
terms of the sales pitch, and it's just like, oh my God, and then things saying like, I made a lot of money this year, I can teach you how to do it too. Just stuff that like, oh, you own Pokemon cards, you made a lot of money this year. Wow, you must be a genius. Because obviously every single person who owned a lot of Pokemon cards made a lot of money, whether they were trying to or not. Does not mean you were intentionally picking anything or had any idea. Or more to the point that could be somehow teachable and repeatable. The type of success we've all had, the success we've all had this year. So it's something, but it makes sense. And I've been hearing some buzz for a while. Some other content creators I know had been approached to write like an ebook or make some sort of course or something like that to partner with some people. So it's out there.
What's the, like, let's say you wanted to write a book, or I wanted to write a book, or like at some point in time, what's the like reasonable, respectful, authentic way to go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I am not anti-courses or anti-books. I think it's just about like the merit of the course, how valuable the course is, and then how much you're charging. Does it equal like the value that you're getting? And for $29.97, if this course goes into a lot of the stuff we talk about on this channel, that would be probably pretty reasonable. I think that the issue with the course is the sales pitch has already started off on a pretty bad note here, promising huge, crazy returns, saying that Pokemon, is at an all-time high and that everything only goes up, that type of vibe, and that you're going to make money. And then in small print at the bottom saying, we don't guarantee, it's the amount of time you put into it. It goes back to that's the sales tactics. And then also just that you don't need any knowledge or like background in it. Like that type of stuff is concerning. But for me personally, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, Chris, but like I would have no problem with someone experienced in the Pokemon hobby writing a book or doing something that was filled with their ups and their downs, things they did well, the things that they missed, the things that they learned, and also just with giving an accurate overview of how much you can really expect to make in this and how difficult it is and challenging and how much luck is involved, and like giving a real picture of what it's like. One, I think there's just entertainment value in that. I think all of us consume a lot of that info, including people who consume this channel, not even to learn, but just because we enjoy talking about it and reading about it, just like you would enjoy any book that you would read. So I think there's value there. But it's when it has that get rich quick vibe and it kind of tells a lie and people are buying it on a sort of false premise, potentially, that it can be, for me personally, like problematic. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, I definitely live by the, if it's too good to be true, it is kind of mentality. And when you get these big grand promises from the start. And I get it too. When you have a singular product or a singular course, you want to get, you want to garner interest. You want to get people like excited about it. And really the best thing too is, I mean, I always think under promise, over deliver, because if you make a good promise, like you'll learn fundamentals here, then when you have the next course, the people who actually found success, and I think that's where, in terms of how I would kind of think about going about it, is you do something kind of at a very low price, low cost, and you try and put a lot of effort and a lot of value into it. So that way the individuals themselves, I talk about this all the time, it's very binary. Did you gain value or not? And how you gain value is, did you make money or did your appreciation go up? Now, the second one I can't really measure, but the first one I definitely can. And that is kind of how I think it should progressively go. So, if that kind of course does well and people find great value in it, and the next one comes out and it's $60, I would totally understand that. That would make a lot of sense. But
yeah.
That kind of step level, it's hard to say. Like what you were saying, Jake, if it has wonderful value, great. Kind of the proof is in the pudding. I don't know how to know, but I'm probably willing to throw down $30 just to see what we're starting at in terms of just landscape, and trying to gauge how we feel about that.
And he is a guy who I've talked to a little bit, and he's been buying and selling these cards and has a pretty wide range of knowledge. We talked about some pretty obscure cards together, and he like knew the background and the information on it. And Collector's Cash has had connections with Japanese middlemen and sellers, and have gotten like some of those Art Academy cards. So it's not like it's coming from someone complete like outside the Pokemon community coming in. So it's not that bad. Someone who was like discovered it 3 months ago and is like, I'm going to change your life with a Pokemon course. So hopefully it'll be really good and really helpful for people. And at 27, if people are spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's a great deal. If it that's not that much money. Again, goes back to that sales tactics though, and kind of the mispromising, and it might be some garbage in there. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I think Z might actually go into it and buy the course and put it on his channel and comment on it. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. What do you think, Sakil?
That's quality content. Yeah, we'll just see, man. I know that they got a prize Cyberstein. Like I know they've gotten some pretty rare Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like to your point of like whoever's running it, I don't know, like whoever's running it does have that knowledge.
Yeah.
We'll see. Who knows though?
Yep. And also what are they teaching? Because their skill might be running a big business like that. How applicable is that going to be to every person, particularly someone who doesn't want to run a big business? It's all that stuff that I'd be interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, the other thing too that I'm just kind of thinking of here too is that if you're paying $30 for these secrets and tips, everybody who pays $30 is getting the same tips and tricks. So guess who you're competing against now with the same shared knowledge?
Yeah.
So the more popular it gets with that kind of marketing tactic, the less value it actually has. And I would say that at a $30 price tag, that seems, I would personally say, priced aggressively low for an intro level thing. So that to me makes me hesitant, but I'm pessimistic, I suppose.
Yeah. I think that you always have to be careful with courses because, and there's a line that Z tore into understandably, where he said something like, I've made enough money and this is for you guys. As part of the salesman. And, that's a red flag, obviously, where someone, very unlikely that this is a giving back to the community.
It would be free if it was.
Type move. Yeah, it would be free probably. And this is a classic tactic from any sort of salesman. And in fact, then they'll say, if you say, why aren't you just giving it away for free? They'll say, because then people won't stick to it or engage in it. It's the classic thing of like, I need to charge you so that you'll respect it and work hard. And there is some truth in that. And this is true for like any sort of lessons or teachings, but there's also a lot of BS. Like there's a lot of like, just like not acknowledging his own self-interest and that he would like as many people as possible. And he would like to make more money. Or he would just close down Collector's Cash. And, it's just, I don't like that stuff. It just seems dishonest on its face. So yeah, but we'll have to see what's in it. It'll be interesting. All right. So Basic Trainer says in late November 2020, pop reports for base set unlimited starters in PSA 8, 9, and 10 were a combined 3,238. Okay, so November 2020. Today it has grown to 4,797. So in 7 months, he's saying it's grown 1,559. Is this growth expected, or is it more or less for our opinions? Are you saying that question for Basic Trainer? So he's asking, over the last 7 months, since sort of the Logan Paul boom, unlimited has gone from 3,000 something to 4,000 something, about a 1,500 card difference for those unlimited starter cards. Do we think that that's a surprising growth? Were we expecting more? Or were we expecting less?
I'm expecting way more than that. That seems low. Only a 50% increase.
Yeah.
Especially for unlimited, like I would expect first. So this is PSA 8 through 10, so maybe a little bit skewed, but I would expect that change in shadowless. I would have expected much, much, much more in unlimited. And I think it's probably likely we do see more. Like, because an increase of 1,500 cards, this is base set unlimited starters 4, which I don't exactly, I have to think about it a little bit more, but I don't know, feels low to me, feels really low, just because how many people like were just subbing Charizards just because you could sub, like there's so many, they printed millions and millions and millions of base set unlimited. So
this is just the starters. Sorry, just Charmander, just the starters. There's way, way more for the whole set. This is just the starter.
Yeah.
I think just
what is 4?
Pikachu, Charmander, Bulbasaur.
Including Pikachu. Okay.
Yeah, and not the evolved forms.
I see. Oh, okay. Okay.
So which
y'all are the Pokemon guys.
The big 4. I think that what's going to be unclear is how many people sent all of that, because you're not making huge money on that. Even at the height, I'm not sure what those are selling for, maybe $300, $400, $200 each in PSA 10, depending on which one in unlimited. Like, that is definitely big money. And I'm sure that there is a number of people who had a bunch who expressed them or sent them pretty quick and paid that and have gotten them back. But I think that there are probably a lot more people who sent it in bulk, who just sent a few, thinking like, well, might as well, it's only $8 and they're selling for a few hundred. And when I get them back, they'll probably still be selling for something, that type of thing. I imagine there are quite a few people who did that. I think that the other part, though, is if the price stays high, which it hasn't, it's come down quite a bit. But if it goes back up ever, it's going to provide more incentive for those to just continue to be graded. Those are all over. I have hundreds and hundreds of those cards in near mint condition. I haven't sent out most of my high ones. I sent out some and then sold some, but I have a lot more. Honestly, they're not even with me. They're in like another location that I don't go to that much, where it's like all my bulk is, that I don't want to have to open these things out and go through them at some point. I already spend like so much time going through my collection, constantly taking stuff out to sell. So, but yeah, but I would expect, it seems like a reasonable number. I mean, I have no idea how to gauge it. That's a lot. And I think that that's with PSA really backed up, where none of the supply has come back from any of the bulk submissions since Logan Paul's gotten into the hobby. So I think that's important to note. I'm not sure where we're at now. I think we're still September-ish. Yep. For most people. I think some people might be getting some things back. You were expressing too that maybe some card games or some things are coming back a little bit quicker, you're noticing, than Pokemon. But I still think we're mostly in September, and so we're not into October, we're not into November, where I think a lot of that would have been sent in, because that's the prices went up in November, late October, November. It's
also entered in September. So like the turnaround time is from entering. So I submitted something in September. It didn't get entered till November. So like we're not even, stuff that was submitted in November isn't going to be entered till January, right?
Yeah. So I would give that another year. Really, I think in a year we'll have more of a sense of like, how much is there really? How much more is going to come back in this from this boom period?
I will just add, as somebody who very I'd say with a magnifying glass, I watch that pop report change every day, stored in the database, and watch that growth day over day, week over week, month over month. And even, as you guys pointed out, what happened in November, I don't think it's even been entered in yet, let alone on the returns. But even despite that, the outputs for just cards in general have been increasing month over month since the beginning of 2021. And because of that, just on that alone, not having done specific research on these four in particular, but I would 100% expect it to just continue to go up, especially because I don't think these were particularly rare or hard to find. I think a lot of people will be sending these in to try and cash in on them. So I don't see a world wherein this is not where it won't go up. And I think compounding month over month, we'll just continue to see that as they catch up with the backlog and continue to send that out.
Yeah, I mean, something like a Charmander that was in a starter deck that you got multiples, and then every box you open, you got many, like 6 of them, 4 to 6. There are millions of this card, like millions and millions and millions and millions of that card. Now, how many survived in mint condition? Probably a decent number, because it's a common card you got in bulk and you just stored it away in a pile, and it doesn't have a holofoil that can get scratched. So I think when we get into like the 8s, 7s, 8s, there's probably enough to go around 3 times over for certainly the number of people who want it right now, if they were all graded. Now, the vast majority aren't graded. The vast majority probably will never be graded, because I don't think the price will go high enough to jar those out. It's a hard learning curve to know how to grade and to do that. And for a couple $100, a lot of people don't want to learn something new. So they don't, it's that type of thing too, that a lot of people are finding their collections now. They don't really know what to do with it. Like, it's going to take a long time for all that stuff to surface, come out, get into people's hands who know what to do with it, who know how to optimize it. And then for that eventually to hit the secondary market and to see what impact it has.
How does that change now how does the behavior of grading change now that bulk prices are higher? Presumably, we don't exactly know all this stuff, but I'm very curious if you have to spend $20 to submit a common, does that mean that all commons are now $10 or $20 higher than they were before? Does it mean that does it mean that less people are now going to submit it, so they're like pseudo rarer than they would be before? Does that mean that the old pops that are how does that affect the ecosystem? I really don't know.
I would say yes and yes. What do you think, Chris? Both of those questions.
I think yes and yes as well. I mean, I think it creates a bubble for the old ones that were sent in. So people on the secondary market who got in before that change hit now get added profit, but then everything else, the limitations now, fewer people are going to be willing to send it in due to the cost prohibitions. So you'll have fewer enter the populations, which will inevitably raise the floor of all of them.
Yeah, it seems straightforward to me. I mean, we can get more complex with but what if there are so many that there really won't be a floor? I think definitely people aren't going to send them in anymore. Like that I think is straightforward. I don't think there's a good argument against that. But I do think the argument of because people aren't sending them in, will there be more of a price floor? And because the case itself is now worth $20 instead of $10 or whatever, however people are going to think about it, it won't ever go below that. That I don't think is necessarily true, but it helps. It absolutely raises the value. And it makes it if those cards ever go down to $12, $13, $14 and someone's sitting there thinking, well, it's going to cost me $20 to get this graded, I can get the card basically for minus $5, whatever. That just makes it much more appealing for anyone, I think, looking at that item or looking at any of those items. I think the same is true for modern Pokemon. All the modern stuff that got in under that, I think the raising of the prices is going to create a floor, which is really going to help a lot of people who sent out a massive amount of that before those price increases. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. UCBS says, definitely seeing a behavior change after the Bitcoin crash on higher end collectibles, slowdown in sales, and anticipates it resurges if and when Bitcoin rebounds. Yeah, so this kind of interesting connection between Bitcoin and Pokemon. What do you and other collectibles? What have you guys seen? What do you guys think?
I love it. I think well, I think the connection between crypto and collectibles is that crypto has legitimized the collectible market space, even though collectibles existed well before, because people now see a secondary market as something that is much more, they trust it more. I just think the collective psychology around secondary markets has definitely gained credit from that. However, I would say, and I've used this metaphor before, when you see something like crypto, which has the ability to buy and sell pretty much instantly, when you start seeing those markets go down, collectibles is a marketplace wherein you're left holding for a couple days to a few weeks, which means you can't move it. And because of that restrictions, when I see more liquid markets begin to have a downturn, I fully expect that to eventually crash into collectibles and for that same thing to happen.
Yeah, I also think, to your point of like, I've never heard the term alternative asset classes really apply to trading cards before this year. like maybe, you know, like within the last 2 or 3 years, it became a little bit more legitimized in that you started to see more and more higher auctions. But I think high level crypto, one, legitimized a lot of these things in the greater kind of populist argument. And then also, you know, the companies that are kind of innovating around this, like Whatnot. I haven't used the app, but you start to see all of these companies that are like, hey, you can do box breaks, you can buy fractional shares, for better or for worse. I don't know, but there's just more and more attention coming to the space. But then, you know, kind of on the behavior side, you know, I think to some extent, all of the markets are correlated to some, you know, like people who are interested in crypto are probably also interested in things that are a little bit funkier. And you know, both of these have kind of been the front page hype media on YouTube for the past 12 months. So it doesn't surprise me that when crypto slows down, you know, TCGs also see a little bit of a retrace.
Yeah, I think the unregulated appeals. I also think that it's around the same age range. I think that a lot of people into crypto are also the age of like Pokemon collectibles, just happen to be. And so you're going to get some crossovers just from simple age. But I do think that a big piece of it is that risk tolerance and doing stuff that's a bit more unregulated, kind of crazy with high potential returns. Things can be anything, not a lot of established price history, you know, all that type of stuff, I think is appealing to a certain group of people. I do think that it's, I don't know what percentage of Pokemon people are into crypto, you know, or that type of thing. I think it's a bit of a newer phenomenon. I actually think a lot of crypto people came into Pokemon this year. So I'm not sure exactly what to make of that, because obviously crypto had a huge boom. What is it, 4 years ago now? Something, you know, huge boom and bust 4 or 5 years ago, where I think, what did it get to, like $20,000 a coin? I'm not sure. At the before, something like that. And of course, you know, I don't think there was any connection to Pokemon then. Maybe I'm wrong, but
well,
so, yeah.
You also saw it, and again, kind of for better or for worse, King Pokemon, you know, Gary King Pokemon launched the NFT. Logan's box breaks half of the readed or the red little ads when he was opening packs for advertisements for crypto. So, you know, there's definitely a mix there. So,
yeah,
I think as well, what would be really interesting for me, and I don't know how many people here are familiar with NFTs, but I think there's going to be a much stronger correlation between Bitcoin movement and NFTs. And the NFTs that I'm thinking of that I think dominated the headlines was Top Shot, which is basketball. Mm-hmm. So seeing how, first of all, crypto now affects the NFTs, and then how that Top Shot might affect basketball trading cards, that is something that I definitely have on my radar in terms of I want to watch and see how it plays out, because I don't know, but I think that's going to be really fascinating to learn from.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add on that one, or shall we move to the next topic?
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Ernesto Alvarez says, question, what's the best way to cash out of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards? Should I do a 7-day auction or sell as buy it now? I want to sell 20% to use elsewhere. How would you do it?
So I think I mean, it's all dependent on the exact cards you're trying to sell. If you have an auction, yeah. If you have an auction, you're obviously going, hopefully if your card does have some demand, it's going to sell at the end of the 7 to 10 days. Your trade-off is time versus money. So if you just want to sell, then auctions are great. And sometimes they actually do outperform buy it nows. Otherwise, I would just list all of the things that you're thinking about selling at market or even slightly above market at buy it now on eBay. And you may be surprised because, nothing may sell or everything may sell for prices that you didn't quite expect. But in terms of specifically liquidating it, if you need, if you really want to sell something, just throw it up on auction and, it'll get bought.
This is definitely a little bit more outside my wheelhouse, but my strategy for doing things of this nature is to try and locate a single person, because I value my time, and that's to try and find a single buyer, whether that's an eBay storefront, send them a message, say, what would you be interested in paying for this? And understanding that they're going to lowball the fees and they're going to try and charge you the premium on it. But that's the strategy that I've always taken, is because I just want to save my time. And if I want to move it, I'm just going to reach out to either storefronts, social media groups, Discord members, and figure out who has the most interest and just move it there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think for high end items, I would personally go Heritage, maybe Golden, or PWCC. I'd probably do PWCC for like your mid high, like 10,000 to 50,000, and then your super high where everyone's going to hear about it, and so you don't need the extra eyes that PWCC gets. You have to be worried about Heritage and Golden in terms of getting as many eyes, I think, as PWCC does. But if it's a super high item, I put it there. I think your other option is consigning with someone like SM Pratt, TCA Gaming, someone with a big store in the Pokemon community who's going to make a video about it, get it out to their channel, their following. I think if you want to do a trophy card with SM Pratt, like these types of things make sense and are decent options for auctions. I think if you just want to liquidate and it's some lower end items, I think, just throwing it up on your own eBay page, no reserve auction for 7 days, they'll all be gone one way or the other, and you'll see how you do at the end of it. And then if you have the patience, you can do the buy it now game. You can try to sell it on Instagram, in a Facebook group, place like Burbank. On Instagram, you can consign with people on Instagram. They're Instagram sellers who have pages that a lot of people follow that put up a lot of cards and do consignment deals. Obviously, with consignments, you're paying a fee to the person who's selling the item for you or putting the item up. Everyone's fee is going to be different. That's just the research you have to do to try and figure that out. But of course, eBay has its fees, and PayPal is going to have its fees. So just understanding all the fee structure. Making the best decision for you. It definitely can be an anxiety producing thing to just throw it up in auction and hope for the best. If it's a good item and you're selling it in a good place, you'll be fine, even if it's scary, because there will be a lot of people who will want that. But there is always a risk. There's always a risk in auctions that it could be a low auction or something can happen. Yeah. And then other places like TCG Player, when we're talking about non-graded cards, we're talking about singles. I don't have a lot of experience with that. You guys have quite a bit. If you want to talk a little bit about your experiences there, because that's a great option, to sell a lot.
Yeah, I chiefly sell through TCG Player when I do sell, not to buy list. Like, that's my marketplace of choice. So, I will say that TCG is really for raw, and my experience is that the grading on those sites, you have to be very weary of and be willing to charge refunds when it doesn't come in the condition it was described as initially by the seller. But so long as you're comfortable with that, you know that going in, I think you can find some great deals there. And I think I see comments in the chat mentioning that eBay is very archaic and old, and I can't agree with that enough. I would say that if you think eBay is 10 years old, TCG is probably 5 years old. So newer. So it definitely speeds up listing, speeds up selling, and it speeds up a number of things, especially once you hit level 4 of the seller front, you start getting your money back a lot faster, basically once you've earned the trust of the platform. So I definitely like that avenue for raw cards, especially if you can source them well. I love that way of outing it. And it has a really nice handy way of, if you have a CSV for or whatever you use to track what you actually have in your collection or inventory. You can control pricing and listing with the click of a button, mass 500,000 items all at once. And if you want to compete, there's a lot of tricks to automate this process. So I really like TCG Player for that front. Yeah.
Yeah, similar for me as well. There's been a little bit more grading exposure on TCG Player. You can now list items with photos, but it doesn't feel right. I don't know what you think, Chris, but it's there. I'm sure people do buy it, but I don't think the eyes are there. It's not, the platform isn't really designed to have your listing actually get exposure. It's going to most likely, obviously, the graded cards are going to be in the higher price range. So you're going to be on the last page of the sale. And I think where TCG Player really shines as a marketplace is if you're able to be the lowest seller. So if it's grading, I don't think TCG Player is quite there yet. But for singles, if you just you're selling through binder collections or whatever, it is absolutely worth your time if you want to put in, an hour or two to learn how to ship, via envelope or in a small bubble mailer. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this on one of our podcasts, just the system that you guys have for making it as simple and saving as much of your time as possible. Just having all of your stuff readily available, knowing where you're gonna send what types of items you send where, all that sort of stuff. That type of thing, to go back to the first question today, if all of that, if it was in that guide from Collector's Cash, where you should specifically sell and why, that would be an incredibly valuable resource for a new person coming in, for example. So that's very valuable information. Knowing all of your options and having the instinct of where am I going to get the most for which item, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And then the other side of it, Chris, right, that you talk about is it's not often you're not about getting the most, you're just about the turnover. So you're going to buy list a lot, largely because it's you don't want to do that work of selling it as high as you possibly can, because you just want to get the money back, move on to the next thing, etc. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of that too, right? It leaves some meat on the bone for the next guy, and people, that item might sell 2 to 3 times. You might be the second person in that, 3-4 line, piece, and each person makes kind of a little bit of money until it gets to that final collector.
Mm-hmm.
All right. HTWA says, hi, I was wondering how fleshed out you guys think the pop reports are for Japanese WotC hollows in 9 and 10.
I'm not the best resource for this, so you can take this one.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I can't even pretend.
I would guess not nearly as well fleshed out as the first edition on the English side, because I think the value is so high for first edition. The value on the Japanese side was so low. I have more mint Japanese stuff. I'm continuing to get 10s on certain things that are coming back. It's much easier to get those hollows. You get one in every pack. You have to worry a little bit less about things like print line issues, whitening. You still have to worry about some print lines. Still have to worry about centering. Centering tends to be the main issue on Japanese cards. A lot of centering issues. So definitely not automatic 10s. I get a number of 8s fresh out of pack just because of terrible centering. So, but I don't know how many of these are sitting in Japanese stores in Japan. I'd like to go to Japan and check it out firsthand. I know you're going, right, Zakil? That's the plan.
Yeah, next year I'm going to do a TCG vlog. I think I'm going to get a list of 20 stores, go there for a month, and just bring a bunch of money and see what happens. So it's going to be amazing content. It'll be a fun time, but still need a little bit more time before travel is safe on my side.
I feel like this is Zakil's equivalent of going to the casino.
Dude,
it's going to take some money, see how it goes. Plus or minus, had great experience.
It'll go well. There's a vlog I watch every now and then of what it's like to buy koi in Japan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like pond koi, they're like goldfish. It's a really big market in Japan. People spend thousands and thousands of dollars on fish. And there's vlogs of people going just to dozens of different ponds of just people who like do this for a living, and it's amazing just to see just to see people who are really true at their craft. And Japan to me feels like not only one of the hottest markets for TCGs, but like collectibles. Like Japanese collectors and collectibles is equally as insane, if not more insane, than I think in the US. You can go to an LGS or like a sneaker hobbyist store or something here, but it feels like, just from my high level kind of experience of what I've talked to people who've gone, is just like it's just on a completely different level. Like there's so much Pokemon, so much Yu-Gi-Oh, so much of everything that just doesn't even get sent over here, from plushies to cards to art and all this stuff. So I want to experience it firsthand, just as like a fan, and then also, you gotta go and see what you can do, right? Make some business deals.
Yeah, I'm hoping to go someday too. It'd be fun. I think the last piece to say on that question is just that there was a lot of Japanese packs in the United States. Obviously, tons of people had childhood collections with plenty of Japanese holos. I still see quite a bit. People are opening it up on streams. It's cheaper. You get a holo in every pack, so it's still going to be opened more than English Wansea holo versus. So that's all the stuff I'd be thinking about. I think those got overpriced. I think those were definitely underpriced. Then they got overpriced, and tends to be how things go. So they were definitely underpriced before, like a few years ago, particularly when we had a lot of people say like, no one likes Japanese and it's not collectible. And like, that was a narrative. So demand was just very low for those items. Let's see.
So many questions. Seeing so many familiar faces.
Yeah, the one thing to mention, I'm sorry. The one thing to mention on that Japanese is that base set, it's like a holo in one in every 2 packs. Jungle Fossil, Gyms, Neos, it's every pack. E-Series, I think, is also 1 in every 2. So it's not one for everyone. Just want to make sure people know. Go ahead, Zakil. I apologize.
No, I was just going to say, I've seen so many familiar faces. Shout out Swami, and I think Eric Aloro is in here. Basic Trainer, I've left some comments. I'm sure many more people, but I'm just seeing a bunch of people around. Jody, I think, as well.
It's a great community.
Team Trubbish knows my my LLC name, so I know them somehow.
Drew as well.
Let's see. Yo Arnold says, do you think sealed product like SM era booster boxes will drop in price?
Do you want to go first?
No, I kind of want to hear your thoughts before I go into this.
I'll go last. Jake, do you want to go?
Oh my gosh.
I got cut loose.
These are my guests today. These are my guests. Come on, guys. Let's hear it. I nominated for Zakil to go first because he tried to go last. Go ahead, Zakil.
I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Not bad. He's not an expert. Next.
Yeah,
no,
I don't know.
I'll give an answer as best I can in that. I think it all depends on how it's reintroduced in the market, because I think a lot of people are hoarding S&M, X, and Y. So I personally would expect it to go down in value over time with a slow rebound thereafter. But that's my expert level analysis. So I think in the near term it goes down, and over long term it starts appreciating again as just overarching collectability increases.
That's what I would hope to see. I think that would be the optimistic view, actually. And you'd probably seem like the bear to a lot of people who are holding that product. To me, that's sort of the realistic, but I think very realistic, optimistic view, that at some point it reaches that point where people do part with it or open it because they're just tired of sitting on it, or the price goes down enough that people start to open it again. Mm-hmm. You still have to worry about reprints from that era. What else do I have to say? I think booster boxes have always been something that's been interesting to me, because I think that they're a lot more difficult to predict how they're going to be, because we don't have numbers on them. We have no idea how many are sealed. We have no idea how many are sitting in people's houses, other than just like the 1,000 Instagram pictures I've seen. I'm just imagining that there's a lot of them, but I could be wrong. There could be a lot less than I am imagining in people's houses. I do know there are a lot more of those in people's houses than WotC boxes, and I think even less when we get into like even Diamond and Pearl era, certainly the original Nintendo EX era and E series. So I think that to me it goes back to like what's the better investment, and to me, even if we're talking $1,000 for one of those or $600 for a Sun and Moon box, depending on which one. I don't know what they're really going for. I think some are probably still going for 300, 400. Some of the lesser ones, maybe even 200 for some 250. I'm not sure. I saw Burning Shadows go for pretty low recently, which I found interesting. But I think when we're talking like 250, 300, that's not like, that doesn't, and if we're talking like, would I rather have a $200, $300, $400 Sun and Moon booster box, or would I rather pay like $5,000 to $10,000 for like a Diamond and Pearl box? Not sure. I'm honestly not sure which one I'd rather. Neither are that appealing to me at those prices versus other items. That's where I get like, okay. But like when you see certain items from XY, which I don't see as much better, frankly, than Sun and Moon. And I think XY is way overrated. I think Sun and Moon has better deals than X and Y, to be completely honest with you. I think when we see certain X and Y product going for many thousands, it's like I'd much rather have the Diamond and Pearl box, which I think is much rarer, is going to have much more desirable cards that have much more value inside of them. I think all of the XY product, almost all of it, maybe outside of Flashfire and like the full art Charizard, which is really hard to grade, maybe, which I think isn't talked about enough. I think that card is cooler than it is. I actually think that card's under talked about in terms of modern as a Charizard. I think it's a much better Charizard than some of the other Charizards, which everyone talks about all the time. In part because everyone has those other Charizards and very few people have that one because it's much harder to get in 10. I think that's where I get like, I'd rather have those earlier boxes. Now WotC, there's a lot of WotC. People with WotC underestimate how many sealed WotC boxes there are. There are a lot less from those middle generations, I think. So those are my quick hit thoughts on booster boxes. I think what's so tricky to determine with booster boxes is the supply does always go down as people open them. The problem is the expected value of a lot of these things is going to tank within the next few years, within the next few months, because there's so much supply is going to hit the market from those X and Y sets. I said like Evolutions, Hidden Fates. It'll be interesting to see how much hits from Sun and Moon. I'm not sure. I'm going to be watching some of those like rainbow, some of those like big hitter rainbow Pokemon cards. Obviously the Burning Shadows Charizard one, but a lot of them I think are interesting in terms of their value. I have a lot of those cards myself. So I was buying them a long time ago, but I did see some value in them and I do think that they're cool and interesting. So I don't know. What do you guys think about all that? Any other thoughts?
Go ahead.
Please.
Okay. I really like it because I think you just kind of put into words a lot better than I did, in that like I'm falling back on my fundamentals when I see this question. And I think you kind of laid out that groundwork there. It's a modern product that's probably overpriced right now. Just like, there's a lot of supply, so you can get it. And the price point, given the recency and the expected supply, is really high.
Yeah.
Versus when you look at older products, even if there, is more than expected, it's still 20 years ago, or even the middle products where, interest waned. So in terms of, because for me, I'm not somebody who's going to put my money in something for 10 years. I want to flip it by week's end. So my mentality, knowing that, would be I can kind of foresee that these boxes, these sealed products, regardless of every other market factor, are almost certainly going to go down in the near future. So in terms of optimizing, if that effort is worth reward to whoever's asking, put that into something more reliable, or with better fundamental support in that it's older. People perceive WotC to be like the core that's the oldest, put it there, or do your research and find out, okay, what sets do you think from the middle eras are undervalued, and take advantage of the fact that these products are overvalued now to kind of better position yourself there. But it all depends on how much you have and what else you have. But yeah, sorry, Zakil, you can go ahead.
No, you're good. The other thing I think about EV that's interesting is, of any box printed in the last 5 years for S&M, like part of me is also worry, like let's take Hidden Fates for example. If Hidden Fates PSA 10 Zard goes down to a PSA 10 of being $500, like what does that do to, and I know obviously there's no booster box of Hidden Fates, but what does that do to like the price of sealed? There's always going to be a premium because there is somewhat EV calculation. There's an EV calculation, say the average result of this booster pack will be X, and you can have a small premium just because it is scarce. But if the graded pops come back and it's like, hey, I can just buy a PSA 10, whatever the target card in this respective set is, for 200, 300, 500, whatever the price is, does that bode well for people who are holding sealed, with the intention of these recent sets to really appreciate in value? Because you have to also remember, like, the reason Pokemon cards from 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, 30 years ago, however long, is expensive is, one, it is objectively rare, but two, the vast majority of people who are opening that product didn't do it with the intention to grade and be a hardcore collector and all that. It was very organic. It was obviously targeted at kids. Everyone here knows this, but fundamentally, like, go back and think about that. Well, if 2% of the people who were buying sets of the first 5 years of Pokemon were doing it to hold, or just happened to be store owners that like forgot them in storage units, the price points of those booster boxes are where they are now. What if 30% of the people who are buying modern are holding them for 5 to 10 years, right? So
Yeah.
The parallels aren't quite there. I think we assume they're going to be that, but just be a little cautious of that. That makes sense.
We are in a bull market in Pokemon right now. Like, people think we're in like a bear market. No, this is what a bull market looks like. This is just a big correction in a bull market. So these things are going to tank in bad periods. Like, no one is going to want any of these modern sets. Like, people, like, everyone has bull market glasses on still. Even though people have gotten a gut punch, people still have an irrational exuberance on these products. Now there'll be periods where people are going to get a real gut punch, and there's going to be a bear market where everyone gives up on these and thinks they're hopeless. That's when I'd be investing in them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the time when everyone tells you this, no one wants this, it's worthless. That's the time to invest in something. When everyone's telling you just hold them and put them in a closet and you're going to make money 100% guaranteed, that's a time when you should run for the hills or put your money into something else, probably. Now, that doesn't mean that in the interim you're going to make money and they'll probably go up, as long as people continue to have that sort of sentiment on those items. Yeah, they're just not attractive to me for so many reasons. I mean, just paying $600, $1,000, $2,000 for a booster box that's been out for a couple years, 4 years, even 5 years, even, that's a tremendous amount of money. It's just a lot of money, guys, for any item, let alone an item like that. I'm spending, I think I just bought a Jolteon for $1,400, a PSA 10 first edition jungle for $1,400. Right now, I could have gotten that card a few years ago for $300. Okay, so that's moved up a lot, right? But there are 100 and maybe 20 something of those in the world right now. There have been only 2 graded recently in the last 50 weeks or something. There aren't going to be a lot more of that card in PSA 10. I can get that for much cheaper than I can get an XY box. That makes absolutely no sense. That's the first ever. People are freaking out. People are putting tens of thousands of dollars into EV Heroes when they could buy a PSA 10 first edition Jolteon for $1,400 for the same price of buying like 5 or 6 boxes of EV Heroes and getting the brand new Eevee. So I think those new cards are mostly a fad or have fad items. I think some of them will stand the test of time and become historic. The WotC stuff's already, it's golden. It's golden already. And it's undervalued right now relative to this later stuff. And I have all these cards. So I can get out my modern binder right now, and I have a ton of XY cards and I have all of the heavy hitters, all of the best full arts from that were worth nothing. You know, some of my favorite cards was like Secret Mewtwo's from like Breakpoint, from those like breakthrough, from those break sets. Love those cards. I think they're great cards. I think they're undervalued. I think they're underknown. Okay. But there's just more that's even more underknown and undervalued. And then you have your cards that every channel is talking about and sets that every channel is hyping up that are not as good as even those XY cards that are going for more than those and that are even worse than those vintage cards. So that's how I see things. That's certainly where I'm going to put my investment money on. And it's going to take a while for me to be right. I'm pretty confident. In fact, I'm very confident, and maybe everyone will get a chance to laugh at me, which I'll be totally fine with. If I end up being wrong in a few years or 5 years or whatever, it's going to take a while for me to be right on these things, for the market really to move towards that way. But I feel very confident it will. Yeah.
Shout out to Solemn Yu-Gi-Oh! It's in the chat.
Nice. Hey man, good to see you. Let's see. VVV asks, thoughts on stamp cards from EX Delta, Deoxys, etc. How rare are they to the same card but without the stamp?
That's a you question. I'm not as familiar on the intricacies of that personally.
So I've seen some of those cards. I don't know. I think I've been asked this before. I don't know the relative rarity. There are quite a few of those stamp cards. You can go on eBay right now and you can see the Deoxys stamp cards, and there are quite a few. So I don't think it's like there are incredible shortage, but maybe if you bought them all up, there wouldn't be a lot more behind it. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sitting on them. Other people might be. So I'm not really sure about it's a great question. Like those are fantastic questions. And there's so many things in Pokemon like that. There's so many little niches that people don't know the answer to. And that's why there isn't a market, or there hasn't been a narrative created around it. So if you could find the answer to that, you start a YouTube channel, you say, these are much rarer, which is true. You'll see a price movement around them because they're cool looking, and the stamp, I think, adds something.
Yeah, I think for me, for my take, I don't know as well, but my entire approach to it would be kind of methodology based. How were they released in regards to the comparable? It doesn't really matter how many. If you can create a fair ratio comparison from there, start gauging, how many of these are actually moving on the market, which does require a bit of research. Once you get a feel for the rate of things, you get to versus obviously whatever you're comparing it against. I would assume the non-stamp. And so once you kind of have a feel for that, you can start to see, okay, given the difference in price point, if there is one, is this undervalued or is this not? By creating a strict one-to-one comparison, even though you don't know the exact numbers, you don't need to, so long as you now understand how the market is treating them, because that's more important than anything else. So, yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
All right. Neo says, question, any predictions for about when the low point in the market will hit? Obviously impossible to tell, but I'm guessing after November, March PSA submissions return.
So if we assume that, so the Logan Paul event happened in November, and let's assume that the majority of people submitted within like a 3-week period of that, maybe 1 week before and 2 weeks after. I submitted a submission in a bulk submission in September that got registered, or that got entered in November. I submitted one in November that got registered, I think, in January. And then if we're assuming bulk is a year after that, we may not see the complete, I guess, graded pops submitted during that time for another 9 months. Is that right? Does that sound right? For in June, bulk turnarounds maybe a year and a half, something like that. That's the only data point that I can really think of. Yeah, that's what I would. And then on top of that, just like that's, I think, for the pure graded submissions. There's also a really interesting point I think we'll run into this next month of when PSA opens again, so lots of people have obviously gone to CGC and probably Beckett, but when PSA opens again, is there a chance that they get flooded and they're like, hey, we have to close again or whatever, right? Like in August, they're like, we received 2 million packages because, I have 1,000 cards that the day that it's open, I'm going to submit. And I'm sure there are many, many other people who have the same. But of course, we don't know what we don't know. I have no idea. So
yeah. So I think my estimation would be, again, November seems to be the month where I would have expected the most to have been sent in. I expect most people who sent in as an aftermath of that video or of the influx of attention on Pokemon probably did bulk. So I would guess 12 months. And from there, then I would guess 1 month being buoyed just because December has a lot of Christmas purchases. So my estimation would be January to March of 2022. I say March is the cutoff because April is tax returns, and that's for the chance of recovery from there. So I would I would really expect in terms of mass supply entering the market would be around the months of December 2021, January, February, March, and then really seeing how the market responds to having so much flooded back into it with the kind of saving grace angel of people getting their tax returns. Everything is now suddenly affordable. So now you've got the money and what you want is within reach to see how that then recovers from there. So that would be my off the sleeve estimation there.
Yeah, nothing too much to add to that. I think that yeah, that's mostly the supply side. And you mentioned a bit of the demand piece. The other side is the demand, right? So predicting when are people going to have money? When are people going to be buying presents? Depending on what type of item you're selling, what range. I think that people are clearly leaving their houses now. They're going out. They're doing other things. They have less time, less interest in this. That's going to, affect that demand side too. And their money is going to be going to other things like vacations. Pinpointing when that's going to hit specifically, I think a lot of that is already hit. There might be more, but I think a lot of that has already hit. I think mostly what's happened is we've seen a huge demand shift. I don't think we've seen any of the supply shift yet, or barely any of it completely, to be completely honest. So I think that's where I would be very careful, guys out there. It's like, we're not even now. I do think that a lot of people are aware that the supply is coming. And so people are not buying. So I think that that's already been baked into the cake in a lot of ways. You don't, as we always talk about on this channel, right? Investing, that psychological piece, what people think is going to happen is often already baked into the prices. So people are holding out, waiting for the prices to go down. So there's more demand than there might appear because people think a lot of it's going to come back from PSA. So how to factor all that in and then pick a time period when that's the time, good luck timing it all. But it's good to think about though, and have a rough estimate of when you think a better 6-month period might be to buy or sell. I think is worth thinking about.
The other thing is that the calculation we just did is value, would be like the bulk submission.
Yeah.
Economy. So like, and then let's assume everything, if the vast majority of people who submitted know what they're doing or are somewhat aware, it's very unlikely that people are submitting high-end, high-tier cards in bulk. So to your point, we may have actually seen a lot of, I'm looking at my PSA submissions right now. I was submitting some economy in March. It was entered May 15th and it just got shipped out yesterday. Like that's 6 months after the Logan Paul box break. So there's a good chance maybe the majority of near mint high-end stuff has actually already been submitted. And maybe you can expect a 10% increase in supply on like the mid to higher range stuff of people who just like happen to throw it into bulk, or some economy stuff that's still sitting. But there's a good chance that like maybe that this is the entire supply, right? Or, I don't know. So
yeah, I think on the higher end. So first of all, tons of people submit the high end stuff in bulk because they've been getting away with it for years. And only recently has PSA started to upcharge, which is why you're seeing all these videos and people upset that they're upcharging because they were just not paying the upcharges. In fact, most people were doing that. That being said, most of those cards were probably already graded because there was already good value in most of those 10s. So people were grading the 9s and the 10s of first edition holos, trophy cards, etc., high-end Japanese promos. So, and the numbers bear that out. We're not seeing a lot more of that right now. We're seeing 1 to 2 added every 6 months, which is still maybe a little bit higher than the previous year, but barely. Dylan asks, do you think all the supply of demand in Pearl or black and white could be even less than the EX era sets? So we actually already touched on that a little bit. I guess the quick hitting answer is just that maybe it could be, probably not. They're probably both pretty comparable and low. I don't think anyone knows except for Zakil, but he's not telling. Some people not liking the course.
How about, let me ask a question to the chat. What would a $30 a month course have to include for you to like it? I'm not interested in actually doing it, but I'm just curious. Because I think I've gotten more than $30 of value from watching Pokenomics videos.
Akil loses money on some of the content he makes.
It's true.
So Akil is truthfully very passionate about this and doing it because he enjoys it and does it for minus. He loses money doing it, like
It's
genuinely.
True. It's true.
So I'm not interested in losing money doing it, and we've talked about it. I'm not quite as although to be fair, I did
small amount of money, not serious about it.
That's true. Yeah, I definitely started this channel with just wanting to give away free information to help people through a period, and then I was like, this is a lot of work and exhausting. If I'm gonna keep doing this and this amount of it, I'm gonna need to start a Patreon or do something. Although I did I reached out to Scott early on in my channel about his Patreon, and I wanted to collaborate with him or work with him and learn from him because he was so knowledgeable. So I did have a mindset of like, maybe that would be something I'd want to do someday, but yeah. Let's see. Jeremy Judkins says, do you think there's any substance to the Beckett specifically graded Logan Paul's Charizard purchase from Gary High, so he would show it off at the boxing match conspiracy going around?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
They're playing 4D chess. I got a board of checkers here. I don't know.
I'm cynical enough to jump on that hypothetical, crazy, ridiculous conspiracy theory bandwagon. Why not? I don't know.
I don't know why I would want to buy. That was arguably one of the worst boxing matches of the past 20 years. I don't know why.
It was A+ for entertainment. I got everything I wanted out of that.
Your expectations are so low then. That was
yes.
So bad.
I don't watch boxing, but I enjoyed what I saw.
All right. We have so many questions, guys. If you see any, if you want to look at the bottom of the chat and you can pick them out that we haven't seen, and I'll just continue looking at the top because we're just in the beginning of the conversation. I'm trying to get everyone's questions as long as we haven't covered it already. Your average player has a stat for us, which I have not verified, but he says, have you guys seen that Pokemon sold more than 20% of their total printed cards last year? If that's true, that would be insane. I have not heard that stat. That seems like a lot given the mania in the late 90s, but 20% just in 1 year, that seems like that seems surprising to me. But that would be a very, very interesting stat.
I've mentioned this before. I think this is just a fun thing that I get from watching eBay sales. I think over 250 people sold over $1.25 million worth of Pokemon cards on eBay alone. So whether that's sealed, graded, that just makes me want to be bullish on all the numbers, or at least I expect to be high on all of those numbers surrounding that. So yeah, falls in line.
Well done, Rusty. TCA Gaming. We collectively salute you, sir. You are the king. Dude is a maniac on the selling front. Whew. He's doing business over there, and he is someone, to give him a shout out, gives away free, free information, incredibly useful from a guy who's really killing it in the buying and selling arena. When you read out the numbers of how much he had made if he had sold this year I was like, good on you. By the way, all that's public data for people who don't. You can look to see.
Gotta know how to. Just gotta ask eBay for it.
Yep.
Maybe pay them a little bit.
Rock Pokemon asks, do Chris and I collect or spec on Harry Potter? I don't. Do you?
I don't, but I love it. I love it. I think it's right in the alley of something that I would definitely.
Where were you, man? I was talking about it. They were $25, $35, $50 a box, man.
Because that's the kind of product that I wouldn't have the gumption to actually speculate on, but that is something that I would 100% want in my personal collection, if that's fair. Like I would 100% put that on my shelf, and it would never leave my shelf, and I'd point at that every single time and like bore people to death with stories about that, because that's just who I am as a person. So yeah, that's like the Lord of the Rings. I've got like Star Wars stuff stacking up on my bookshelf now. I love Star Wars. I don't think it's ever going to have value. I just like owning it. So like in that same vein, like the Harry Potter, I definitely missed the boat on that one, but I love it. And the next time that swings around, I'm probably going to be on it.
That's where value comes from, that people want it, right? So then it just becomes the supply question of how much supply is there. But there were a lot of people who felt exactly that way, and that's why it never went up. And whereas people see high prices in Pokemon and they're like, well, then it must be valuable, even though who would rather pay? I'd much rather pay any day of the week. If I could never sell the items and put it on my shelf, I could buy it for $25. I could buy a Quidditch Cup booster box with Harry on a broom, like looking sweet, with WotC, with the same size box and the same WotC wrapping as all the Pokemon boxes for $25, or I could buy a base set box for $30,000.
Same, real easy.
Same moment in history, same moment in history, and yeah. So I think that's the key to investing, value investing too, is like have the confidence, but that's a different sort of thing, and we talk about this a lot on our collect and spec podcast about, just, you, Chris, kind of focusing more on the sure thing that's already proven in the market and just kind of flipping the margin,
Yep.
And that is a safer, and that's a model that I would imagine all these big stores are running, that everyone's running, that the majority of people are running. Even people who call themselves investors, they're not really thinking in that investment capacity of buying undervalued items, holding them and watching them go up. They're thinking more in the terms of, that market arbitrage, the moving an item from one place to another as quickly as possible, and you taking a cut of that movement.
Yeah. It all depends if you got bills to pay each month. If you got bills to pay each month, you got to make money now. And if you don't, if you're not supporting paying bills with this, then you can invest as long as you want.
One other question, Niwi asks, to Chris and I, do we collect any sealed product? I do. I'm like a sealed product junkie. I just like buy boxes of like everything. So just as kind of a quick background, so my business, the eBay store and TCG Player and PayPal and all that stuff, is mostly selling graded cards and or going to kind of LGSs or buying collections, finding stuff that I think is near mint, grading it and kind of turning a profit and doing business that way. But my long-term positions and then just my personal collection is like, dude, did you know that Sailor Moon had a booster box from like 2001 or something? Like I need that. So I just have like random product, whether it's a legitimate speculation or it's something that I do enjoy. Yeah. So a little bit of everything. Quick note, if anyone, I'm looking for a first edition wavy LOB box. That's a big ask, but that's kind of my 2021 goal. If anyone has one for sale, if you're watching this video or you know of someone, hit me up.
Hook him up.
The flex. But yeah, no, I've gotten into sealed a lot more the past 6 months. I've been pouring a lot more money into sealed because it's just so much easier to organize, store, and then move, especially as some boxes in the modern era are getting much smaller and much more compact. As I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, it gets all the more enticing to just take this, stick it in a drawer, and just let it sit. Especially for me, because I like to take premiums on credit. So these last 6 months since the start of 2021, I have been probably fueling just the sealed aspect, I would say, quote unquote, of my portfolio more than anything else. So yeah.
Sealed in many cases is definitely the best buy, and it has it's also just the simple fact that you can turn that into, you can open it and you can turn it into the opening pack experience, which is fun. Then you can turn it into like grading those cards experience, which is fun. If you're talking about the game which can't be named, or or Flesh and Blood or something like that, you can draft, right? And so that like a lot of these boxes have a lot of value because people love to draft. And it's just purely for the experience and not at all the expected value. So there's all that sort of stuff that plus the fact that there are going to be less and less of them, like all of that is in your corner, and you miss out on all of that with buying that end item of that PSA graded item. Now, the plus of the PSA graded item is that there's no guarantee you're going to get that 10 from that box. In fact, it's very unlikely. It's very, very unlikely. And particularly in things like that aren't Pokemon, or like something like a Gold Star, where the pull rate is so low to actually get one from a box, or if you want to talk about DBZ, the pull rate to get the ultra rares 1 in 12 boxes, then it becomes like, well, it's so hard to get that card. It's so hard to get it in 10. Even if all those good things are working for the box, it's better to buy the card, probably in that scenario. But outside of those scenarios, I think the booster box, the seal product is just a much, much safer buy.
Yeah. I really enjoy there's like almost like a food pyramid in terms of, when a product comes out, you've got sealed, then you've got singles, you've got the chase cards, and then at the tip of the pyramid, now you've got graded. And as time goes on, the sealed actually gets smaller and moves up higher than the singles because now you're chasing the graded cards. So the dynamic of the market over time changes. So a bit of a learning curve there in terms of places to, I think, invest in and as the market changes. And I think it does that rather consistently.
One really important message from the sports card industry, which is what people should be studying in part to learn about, to try to predict the future of Pokemon. During this boom, a lot of the sealed product from the 90s, which never had any value, surged up in value. Okay. So like, for example, like some 90s, there were some 90s boxes that were, $50 that went to $500 because they had Gary Payton rookie cards in them, for example. And suddenly that card was worth $300, $400, $500 in PSA 10, and you could get multiple of them per box. People saw that. It's the reason evolutions went up. It was driven up by the Charizard hunt and by the fact that all those cards, a lot of those reverse cards in 10 and 9 you actually could make money, buying the box at $100. You're actually making money by grading everything. The danger, though, is that unlike with sports, where no one graded the Gary Payton rookie because it had no value in the 90s. And so now the only way to get the mint one is to open up the product. And so a lot of people are opening up the product, thus pushing up the value. What is going to make these Pokemon PSA 10 cards be valuable in the future if there are too many of them now, or if so many come on the market now? How long is it going to take for all those to be absorbed? Because like if you can buy a PSA 10 of the chase card from a set for really cheap, how much are you going to pay for that booster box? You know, that becomes that question of like, it becomes a lot less enticing to buy that booster box. But if the chase card from that booster box in PSA 10 is way more valuable, and even though you're not going to pull it and you're not, you know, and it's probably not going to grade a 10, it still adds that fun of like, I could make money. But if you get to the point where like you cannot make money on this booster box if it's going for 600 or 1,000 because the best chase card is worth under that, you completely lose that aspect of the incentive, even if it becomes a fairly rare item because a lot of it gets opened. So I think all that stuff's like crucial, you know, in trying to predict what's going to happen. Just makes it so difficult. It's all risk.
Spoilers.
All right. Let's see, and feel free to shout out questions, guys.
So Solemn responded. He responded to the question I asked about what would a course have to have. He said, I think the issue is how the course is marketed, similar to what you were saying, Jake. It's an extremely guru get rich quick type of sales pitch that tricks gullible people into buying it. It's actually quite cheap overall. And like, that's the thing where, like, what's the line between Tai Lopez, you know, kind of like a little bit weird, not quite being clear, versus Warren Buffett writing a book, or someone in the community who has had a lot of success and is just like doing it for fun? I don't know.
Well, I find someone like Tai Lopez talks a lot about how he hangs out with the smartest people in the world. I don't know if people here listen to a lot of Tai Lopez, but he says, I have the smartest people around me making the smartest decisions. He doesn't say what those decisions are, and he doesn't say smart things. He just says, I'm surrounded by smart people and we do smart things. So there are a lot of people in the world who say that they're smart, who say that they're this, who say that they're that, but they're not actually doing any of that, or there isn't actually content. There isn't something tangible behind it. There isn't any action, or they haven't done any of those things, or what they're saying isn't even that smart. They're just, you know, so I think that's one really good way of kind of trying to separate who a person is. And is this a salesman who's very good at salesmanship and marketing? And, you know, now to be fair to Tai, he teaches salesmanship and marketing. A lot of the money he makes is teaching those things. Clearly it's worked extremely well. Do I want to be wealthy? Do I want to be that guy making money that way? You know, maybe, but I can't, because I wouldn't be able to sleep with myself. You know, I mean, sure. You know, no, I really wouldn't. It's now Warren Buffett. I think he's profited off of some BS around him, if I'm being completely honest. You know, I think that he's and his company, I think, has been overvalued at times because people are like, he's the Oracle of Omaha. He can predict the future. No, like no one can. And he'll say that, but there's also a bit of a like, you know, he's a salesman. He's kind of got that like Midwestern charm, you know, everyone does. So you just have to be careful. And it's like, what is a person's sort of charm and charisma versus what have they actually done? Where's their value actually coming from? And then can I, if I don't have that charisma or charm and I'm not willing to do that, is that why they're rich? Not because of something else that they might be teaching you or some other principle, but they're really rich and because they have a charisma or a charm. So that's the stuff I would be thinking about when we, you know, from someone like Logan Paul or any of these guys who are excellent marketers or very charming and people really like, or people really hate. They just get a lot of attention, whatever it is. It was always my feelings on someone like Gary Vee, you know, spends a lot of time cultivating people's thoughts about him, you know. That stuff concerns me when I think about who I'm following. Yeah.
I think there is like an element, or at least like a 3-step process in terms of you've got to, I say the game liberally here, it's whatever market you're trying to get into. You got to learn the game to get into it. Once you're into it, you get to compete. And then if you compete well enough, you get to shape it. And I think what you see is a lot of people just trying to skip towards step number 3, trying to shape the market without necessarily, usually they do step 1, sometimes they don't, but they just kind of they try to skip straight to step 3 and just trying to compete from there. And, when they're successful at it, it's, good for them, but it does raise an eyebrow about how they're doing it. I mean, if you can't name, like, I feel like it's very easy after 10 questions, Jake, I know we had this conversation when we first met. It's like within like 5 minutes, you can see, okay, are you passionate about this? And do you know it? Like you can scan that. I think, at least I know you and I can, but it's that kind of element of, if you know your own market and you know what you yourself are doing well enough, which you should, if you are in a market, gauge somebody with the same standard that, do I deem this as competent? Like, this is needed knowledge to be competent. And then once you gauge that against it, personally, I feel like you just sort out like 90% of people, because it's that moment of, if somebody asked me this question, I'd answer it without a second's hesitation, or I'd give some form of an answer that, and then you see somebody get asked the same question and they get stumped by it. And it's like, wait, hold on, wait, what a second? Like, that kind of element to me. But that's part of, I think, the cost benefit analysis of free entertainment on YouTube, and not just YouTube, but other platforms. Anything that's free is oftentimes more entertainment than it is education. And there always needs to be that balance, and every individual needs to kind of discover that for themselves, just keeping in mind those guidelines.
I like listening to Ty Lopez and Logan Paul and Gary Vee because they're entertaining and they're charismatic and they're interesting. But I don't sit there thinking, oh my God, what a genius who has cracked life. Nobody freaking, I don't
watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians for moral advice and moral teachings.
Anyone like that, no one knows, right? And often the people who are promising you things are the ones you should, they definitely don't know. Although no one knows, So I think that a lot, and I think most of these audiences understand that. And I think most of these audiences, most really big YouTube audiences, they're either giving excellent information and education and or they're excellent entertainers, or in some cases both. And I think that this fundamentally, in a lot of ways, is an entertainment platform, right? I mean, people want to fill their hours. They want something to do. They want to take their mind off of something, and they want to watch someone who's charismatic and makes some grandiose claims. And I think that's fine. I think though, there seems to be a certain percentage that falls, that sees big numbers and misunderstands why or where that's coming from, and then takes advice or asks someone something when they don't really, that isn't why they're successful or why they're where they are in their career, if that makes sense. And trying to sort that out. So yeah, I don't know how we got up on that tangent, but
back to Pokemon. I think people are like, where's the Pokemon in the chat?
Well, I don't care.
Let's see.
Who's saying that? Kick him out of here, Jody. This is our channel. We get to talk about what we want. I think people are hilarious that they think that they can control what a content creator puts on their channel. And I'm just I don't put any effort or work into this. This is what you should talk about, or what I want you to talk about. It's like, okay,
we appreciate you watching.
Yeah. Sucking up to the.
I'm just watching the watching now number go down and down. Not just kidding.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are people talking about here? Yeah, we can definitely do some more Pokemon if people have Pokemon questions specifically. I also try to pick ones that I don't answer every week. Jody asks, are the Pop Series 1-9 booster pack / cards a lot more rare than everyday sets like SNM, XY, etc.? Is a common Pop Series Bulbasaur really common, or are they fairly limited print sets overall? Any insights into the Pop packs, guys? No.
No, off
Unfortunately,
the top of my head.
I don't really either. I, yeah, it's a great question. I wish I knew more. A lot of those cards though were like opened and thrown out immediately at like tournaments, I think, in different places where they were put out. So I mean, the numbers on those have always been pretty low, like the PSA 10 numbers. I think in part because probably people didn't want it, particularly the anything that wasn't a gold star or non hollow or even just not rare. But I like those packs. I think they're cool. I think they're an interesting piece of history, and I think collecting some of those cards in PSA 10, there's some unique cards from those that are cool. So I like the Pop series. I'm a fan. Do you guys know what the Pop series are? That's where the for example, like the Pop series, the 5-pack has the gold stars. Yeah, the
Umbreon, right?
Yeah, and Espeon, yeah.
I'm just continually like the questions surrounding these pop reports just always has me asking, why is there not just a dedicated go-to Pokemon site? Whether, you know, PSA is, because they make the pop report available publicly. It just, so many questions in terms of how you want to move in the market are dependent on the numbers in the pop report. And it baffles me that so few people are tracking, monitoring, measuring that, and distributing it because so many of these, I don't know, just gauging the market and do you want to get involved? Just something that raises my eyebrow just thinking about.
I don't. Well, you have some experience with PSA and how they protect their data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think PSA wants advanced analytics on their pop report. It doesn't really advantage them. I don't know. What do they really have to stand to gain from having more analysis of their pop report rather than just large auctions, right? It's like, hey, like this card is in a PSA slab and this
So,
card is
but
expensive.
by that logic, why do they even provide a pop report?
I think they do, and I think they do the bare minimum. I think they want the data to be available, but I don't. I guess the point that I'm getting to is like, if they're saying if someone could build a website that pulls their data, which many people have tried and it exists, and it says, hey, they are protecting this card, or hey, like these, like I'm sure it's much more it's much more important from the sports card. They've had a lot of in the sports card world, they've come under a lot of scrutiny for like grading cards that were clipped, or I don't know. I just feel like the way that they manage pop reports for some of the more desirable stuff is probably not something that they want exposed. And maybe that's a little like conspiracy-ish, but I think they stand to lose much more than they stand to gain. But
It just makes
again,
me
who
like, why
knows?
do we trust them then? Like, why are they the people that, or why are they the institution that we're trusting? I'm getting way off topic, but
Well, but what do you mean by trust? It's like there's
I mean,
just the data that we assume, meaning that the data that they provide is true.
I'm just saying we're trusting them in how they grade that a 10 is a 10. And what's the difference between a 9 or a 10? We have to trust that they know the difference. That way, when it's
Sure.
returned, we're, you know, just as a marketplace, we're putting trust on that. And then when something comes out of them, it gets an insane price premium, but they also get to upcharge if it is graded higher. So if they're trying to hide what they're grading higher or not, why, like, that just goes against me wanting to trust them. I get that they're the industry standard, and I'm, truth be told, going to continue to sending things in. So I'm clearly voting with my wallet there. But I think that's just an interesting caveat in terms of we're trusting this institution while knowing that they're putting not necessarily the bare minimum. And I'm not even saying they're hiding it, because it's not hard to check in once a month to see what the changes are. But I just think it's curious. I mean, I don't know. They could even charge for it. I'd happily pay for it. It'd be so much easier. But yeah, I know what you're saying too. There's a lot that they could lose by performing shady business practices or in revealing their own incompetencies or cards that they might be trying to protect. But if they're doing that in the first place, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that Nat Turner, now that Collectors Universe has gone private, we're still seeing the exploration of, I think they bought Geniment. There's a couple of things. I'm hoping that we're going to see like a complete revamp of PSA over the next 2 or 3 years. I think it's likely. I really, really do. I would not be surprised if we didn't, or if we got an app that you were able to just log into your phone and track everything, as well as like a card ID system where you don't have to manually enter it. You can just take a picture of the card and it recognizes, similar to TCG Player. I'm hoping that that's on the way.
I'm very excited for it becoming private, so I hope so too.
I'm not, because that stock was going to the moon, but
oh yeah. I forgot you had a vested interest. My apologies.
Let's see. A lot of Pop Report questions, some Skyridge questions. What are your guys' thoughts? Is Skyridge the best set to invest in? Saw that question.
I never think there's ever a best set to invest in. Not trying to throw shade on whoever asked that question, because I think it's always unique to the position you're in, because the market is always changing and it's dependent on what you're putting into and how much you have, how much your risk tolerance is. There's too many factors in asking that question that are unique to each individual investor. What do y'all think the impact of the CGC Pop Report census eventually becoming available will have on the market?
Well, hopefully it'll be easier to use than Beckett's.
I don't even know how to use those. I've tried.
Sorry.
I think that if it's easy to use, it might have an effect, unlike Beckett's, where it's so hard to check things and it always feels inaccurate that it's sort of like, oh, all right.
You know how earlier we said eBay is like a 10-year-old website or whatever?
Oh God.
Beckett is like
30. It's like the internet just 1992.
They were ahead of their time. One of the first websites up.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's so bad. So yeah, I mean, I think that it will first of all, it'll be really interesting. It'd be great to see like how many people are grading with CGC. I'm seeing a lot of CGC cards coming back, getting a sense of what's being graded. I do think there's clearly tons of modern being graded there, for example, which is cutting into the amount that we're seeing come back. You know, we're already seeing a lot coming back on the PSA side in the weekly numbers I'm looking at. There's probably a lot of CGC coming back. If you put them together, that's a huge amount. There's obviously some Beckett, but not as much. I think CGC and Pokemon I think CGC is probably more. There are more people are grading with CGC right now than Beckett in Pokemon would be my guess. Could be wrong though. It should help that market. I think it will help the CGC market. I think what we're going to end up seeing is there are going to be very, very few 10s. And if we see a sort of a similar ratio of like black label where the CGC 10s become like black label and people can really see that in the numbers, that might help the 9.5s and might make the 10s actually sell for more than they're selling right now. I think the 10s generally are selling at PSA 10 or slightly higher than PSA 10 prices, but they might even sell, more like at those black label prices. Right now, they're not. So yeah, from what I'm saying, I don't know what you guys are saying.
Yeah, no, similar thing. I think CGC has a good product. Like their cases, they figured out, like, I think Bo Dangers made a video where she was able to crack a case a couple months ago with like her fingernail, but they solved that issue. Their website is a little bit better than BGS's, which isn't saying much, but it's there. But then as far as the sales, like, I think once we see that higher end, I haven't seen very many pure, pristine 10 equivalents for CGC. So I completely agree. The one thing I'm interested in is like, is there a chance that a perfect CGC 10 is valued equally as a pristine BGS 10, or like is black label, like, does that hierarchy change? Do people care? Does CGC take it over? I don't know.
I look so forward to just doing equivalization because right now, like when I look at PSA data and I look at Beckett data, and Beckett was an adventure, that's why I snorted when I was getting that information in. But creating a comparison, like what is do I compare a PSA 9 to the 9.5 or a 9? Because it gets difficult. However, either way, whatever strategy you choose, I think it really helps for an overarching just market review. Now, I understand I also go way beyond what anybody should ever do if they value their time. But I look forward to when CGC releases their pop report to looking at what they're selling for on the market, using that average market value to equivalate, is a 9 CGC the same as a 10 on the marketplace, or is a PSA 10 worth way more than the CGC 10s, and creating some form of equivalization there to gauge just across all different vendors, what is the actual value of the grade in terms of how the market values it, and then what are the overall numbers of what's out there and what are people buying. That, to me, I promise you, I'll be doing that on several Friday nights at 2 a.m. That's what I'm going to be doing. So I really do look forward to that.
So we've got about 15 minutes left, guys, for today. So feel free to skim to see if there are any questions that you feel like addressing or touching on.
Do you guys grade with any other company other than PSA?
CGC. I'm biased.
I've never sent a Beckett submission because I literally cannot use their website.
Yeah.
And I've only ever heard negative things of people submitting, and they're like, I don't know, like it got accepted, but like I don't know what happened. And it's just a really bad customer experience. Like it's just so bad. So
Yeah.
CGC and PSA for me.
Beckett's closed now, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just a few days ago, I think. Like they just closed, I think. I was gonna send out my BGS. I have a bunch of cards to send to BGS. And I just decided, I'm just gonna wait. In parks, I don't want to deal with that website, but also because I'm just in zero rush to get these back, and I just don't feel like giving them my cards for like 3 years at the moment, like because I'm not selling any of these cards. These are all like personal collection cards, so I'm just gonna like enjoy looking at them in their card savers for a while, and then when finally this madness ends or cools down, I'll send them in, even if it's 5-10 years down the line. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't mean anything to me. So yeah,
Beckett's main focus are sports cards, right?
So I mean, I think probably every company's biggest is sports cards, but PSA is definitely the biggest for sports cards. But there are a lot of people who like Beckett and sports cards. Magic is, Beckett's Magic was always the main thing for people in the Magic community. Really chose Beckett. I think everything else, all the other ones are PSA, and all the newer cards are going to PSA, more PSA. Although I will say DBZ Score, they don't do a good job at PSA. They don't differentiate the limited or unlimited, and they don't differentiate like the full foil and the half foil, different variations. And BGS does, because they actually have a guy who knows the game there doing the grading. So there are little things like that the other big thing with Beckett with BGS is that they grade like a bunch of random things. Like they'll grade anything. That's my other slogan of Beckett. Like send them a collectible and they'll figure out a way to grade it, even if it's like a bigger case. They were always the first ones to grade like the non-TCG, Pokemon, the different variations, the things that weren't even cards, the playing cards, the little I don't even know what they're called, like the mini cards. I've been seeing them there for a long time.
Beckett was Beckett the original in terms of like TCG grading, and then it was PSA, and now recently CGC entering the space, or was PSA before them?
Do you know, Zakil?
I don't. It's
my belief was that Beckett was first, and because my analogy is Beckett just really seems very lazy in terms of their desire to attract people to them. And then I look at CGC, who is just like, everybody please send to us. And I just, yeah.
I think PSA, I think Collectors Universe, like the coin grading company, is their oldest company. I think Beckett like the actual trading cards probably did first, but
Mhm.
I don't know. They've been around for like quite a long time. So yeah.
Tangents I'll take us on.
John asks, how do you guys feel about jumbo cards? Zakil's a big jumbo collector.
I'm not. I actually do like jumbo cards though. I think they're kind of cool. And I love seeing, have you ever seen like when Rusty grades jumbos or like the blisters of like random Blackstar promos? They're huge. It's like a book. Like it's just awesome.
Well, I could send you a bunch of jumbos if you want them. They're sitting in my closet.
I'm biased. That's actually one of the few things I've got here. So
yeah, jumbo cards are interesting. I think the box toppers too, like the jumbo box toppers from like Legendary Collection, Skyridge, are interesting.
Rock Pokemon says BGS was first. It's 5 to 10 years older than PSA, and then PCGS for coins was around since 1986. Okay, I did know the coin market is a bit older than trading cards.
Yep.
Swami asks, he's going to the game. Should he wear a Nuggets tee or a Suns tee? Suns. I want the Suns.
It's awesome that you can go to the games. I can't wait to go to a Rangers game.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe pick out a couple more questions. Any thoughts on the special delivery Charizard auction that ended on eBay for $3,950 with 66 bids? Do you guys know this one? Right? Yeah, it was the one that like it got sent out by mistake or something. The Pokemon company's name.
Oh yes, yeah, the courier. Yes.
And there was speculation that this was shilled, and some people saying it was, some people saying it wasn't. I don't know. What do you? Any thoughts? Any new thoughts on it?
I don't think it was shilled. I just think doesn't the first graded card, like if the first PSA 10 or first Becca 10 of any hype card, typically go for way above market? Maybe it was shilled. I don't know, but
certainly has. I mean, I'm thinking of. Yeah, I mean, for the last few years, like even back to like the first Black Label of like the Hidden Fates Zard, that went for like $10,000. That was really before the boom. And that was like everyone was like, oh my God, that's an crazy, insane high price. And then a couple weeks later, it was already like $3,000 to $4,000 for the Black Label.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there are people out there who just like, they just want they want that first one there. And maybe they're speculating that like that one is going to have a pedigree, you know, I mean, trying to really think outside the box. It's like, here's the lowest cert number of this card, and someday that's going to have some sort of pedigree or some sort of added value or something. I don't know exactly what they're thinking. Outside of that, as for outside the box, maybe big brain, you know, we're talking about, you know, some chess going on, and maybe they're going to, you know, end up be right and make a lot of money. I'm not really sure like what that, why people pay so much and don't have the patience to just like wait a few weeks till there's a lot more in the market. I personally don't get it, but to each their own, I guess.
Yeah, this is one where if I have an hour, I can do a lot more research into, because there are ways, like when I reviewed the like auctions like this on eBay, the names are blanked out, but you can still see the distinct users, so you can see how many distinct people were bidding on an item. So that really helps you kind of determine was it shilling or not. And so you can break down, you know, okay, so I forget how many, whatever the total number of bids are, but if you only have 4 or 5 people doing that, that does tell you that the market's very small. If you have a lot more than that, you start breaking it down by price range, and you start to see, was somebody just consistently moving it up, the same person doing that. It, you know, it doesn't take a genius to be able to spot that that's maybe it is truly just a bidding war between two people up to 300K, but that seems very unlikely in the large scheme of things. So you kind of want to see a little bit more variety in terms of who's bidding and who's going at it. And especially too, the timing of it is also very important. So on that front, like I get that the market value, the first one out, seems like a unique item. But this is one where, because of such a high price tag, I personally don't trust it at all until I can convince myself digging through the eBay data.
I know the Lost Art Dark Magician Girl. So on the Yu-Gi-Oh side is a similar thing. When that card came out, the first one that was graded went for many thousands of dollars, and now you can get a PSA 10 for like $800 or something. But yeah.
All right, one more question I think for today, and then we'll close it up, guys. If anyone wants to ask one at the bottom.
We should also note our podcast episode 3 is going live at 2:00. If anyone wants to check that, if you like this kind of discussion.
2:00 Pacific time.
Pacific time, yeah. 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
And I sent you the link if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, I can put the link in the description after for people who want to check it out. Okay.
Is it still? Yeah.
Have we changed the name yet, or we're still at the same name?
Pocket Change Podcast.
The name has changed. Oh my God, we're gonna lose.
My wife is thrilled. My wife is thrilled.
Matthew S says, "Do any of you guys deal in error cards?"
I don't. I have a couple crimped, like random one-off stuff that I will getting back from CGC that I will check out, but not as much. That's more of like a printing error. But as far as like no symbol or anything like that, I personally don't have much experience in it.
I don't as well. However, I'll shill him a little bit. In the EU, Charlie Tarbeck is the guy that is like my misprint guru. Anytime I see something that I don't know, I just go through him. So I never have to personally have that knowledge. He just tells me what I have and where I should sell it, and always happy, because the items of that nature, you really do, because the groups are so unique, and so many people too just think, oh, my card's damaged, it's worth less. But if you just go to the right groups, the people, because there are very avid collectors for these items. So finding somebody in the industry, and props to him for doing that for himself, in terms of like he's the go-to for that in my mind. So but yeah, so that's items have great value whether or not people realize it, but you gotta find people who really know the ins and outs of that market, because I really do think it's really niche.
Yeah, I mean, there's learning all the different errors. There's learning the how rare each error is. Where did that error come from? What specific type of pack had that specific type of error? Like, there's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff people still don't know and they're still trying to figure out. So yeah, it's just an area that I don't have a passion for it. I think that's the issue. I think that's why I don't have great knowledge in it, because I just don't have a passion for errors. Like other people do in the hobby. But there are plenty of people on like E4 and TCA Gaming, for example, who Gem and Pokemon, who both really love certain errors and collect certain errors and have a lot of knowledge on them. Yeah, I think those are all good resources, and there are plenty of people to ask on those places. If you have a specific error, there's something you think might be an error, you're not sure if it's an error or if it's just a individualized printing defect, unfortunately, on your card that no one cares about. But I think it's the psychology around errors and the psychology around it being more valuable and more sought after is super interesting, and who likes that sort of thing and why. Particularly if the error like makes it look quite a bit worse. Yeah. By like any sort of like objective definition. I think some errors people like them because they're kind of cool. They look like like, you know, like very similar ones, like No Symbol Jungle. I think some people actually like the look of that better. They think it's cleaner looking. They kind of like the Ninetales No Damage because it's kind of looks cool without the damage, or there's something about the card that looks different or cool. And then you have like the cigar, you know, error, you know, you have like the I don't know, great ghost stamp Pikachu. It's like it's a crappy stamp that didn't get put there, and it doesn't look that good. You know, it's like, but people look at it and pay more. So it's interesting stuff.
I think
it doesn't grab me.
I think one of the coolest ones that I think I've seen, because I just think it's cool, is that somebody, as like they were printing the cards, that there was a thumbprint on one of the cards. And it's like, I get that. That's cool. That's really cool. But yeah.
Yeah. And I don't get that. But like, that's why they're just different, like collect, you know, but like I'm zero judgmental of people who like that, you know, and I have no doubt that there are people who are like, it tells a story and it's so rare that a thumbprint from someone at the factory would get there. And like, that would be cool. To me, it's like some random guy's thumbprint is on.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? But like, like to each their own. And that's what's fun about collecting is like anything that provides that niche or that rarity or that difficulty can provide value to someone that they like the story and they want to collect it. And I have all the respect in the world. I tend to have all the respect in the world for era collectors because they're some of the most passionate kind of like history buffs type collectors. And I think of myself kind of like that. Just for some reason, it didn't engage me in that error side. So maybe someday, maybe I'll come around. Yeah. But a lot of those guys tend to be the greatest guys with the most knowledge, like the error experts in hobbies. I find tend to be some of the most interesting guys, some of the most passionate guys.
Thanks to Jody. Jody posted the link to Pocket Change. The new episode 3 came out right now. So it just went live. If you guys want to listen to that. Yeah.
Right. Any last? Oh, go ahead, Zakil.
I was just gonna say one quick question that came up. Austin Childers. I've heard Instagram is a decent place to buy cards. I have no idea how to find sellers. Is it a good place? How do I go about it? Yeah, I absolutely love Instagram. You can search by hashtags typically. So Pokemon PSA, Yu-Gi-Oh PSA, wherever. And then a lot of the sellers there will be selling their slabs in their story or through posts, and then they'll always be linking other people. So once you follow 10 or so people who seem to have a good amount of following, it'll spider web out, you know, after a couple of weeks, and you'll be following 50, 60 people. And if they're active and they have a good page, the collecting community is pretty good about calling people out who aren't doing, you know, proper business. So yeah, I love it. It's absolutely worth it. I need to like get on my Instagram game a little bit more, but it's a great place.
Second that. Instagram's great. I've done a lot of deals over Instagram. And people like who have big followings and sell a lot, like I trust them a lot. They do a lot of business and have big platforms. And frankly, like the cynical side of me is just like, they have so much to lose in terms of ripping someone off, you know, particularly someone else who has a decent platform. So there's sort of that even though I think these guys are really good guys and wouldn't do that on a moral basis, there is that incentive to also not cheat, because as Zakil said, people do a good job of calling people out and holding people accountable. And yeah, it's good for everyone that everyone does that.
It would be disingenuous for me to give any advice on this matter, as I don't have an Instagram account.
All right. So thank you guys both for being on today. Super fun hanging out. And thank you all in the chat for hanging out and being here. We appreciate all the great questions. And let's see. So next week, I will not be doing the live stream on Sunday. I'm going to be doing the live stream on Saturday, because next Sunday is Father's Day. So on holidays and stuff, I just don't stream usually. So we're be doing stuff with my dad that day. Probably many of you guys might be doing stuff with yours or with family in some other capacity, or with your children. So look out for next Saturday. We'll do the live stream, as I like to stay consistent. We'll just change the day. One day we'll have another guest, which will be fun. I always love having people on. So that'll be cool. And then the following week we won't have the live stream. That'll be the Patreon week. The 1 week a month that'll be the Patreon, and then following week we'll be right back to it. So yeah, thank you all again for hanging out, and thank you to my two great guests for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Any last second takes or thoughts, guys? Probably.
Clippers are winning the chip this year. That's my last second thought. And then, yeah, that's it. Thanks for having us on. Everybody have a good weekend. And
no, cheers, guys. Cold foils from Flesh and Blood have gone up 33% on the marketplace. So buy here, buy now. That's me. Cheers, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Take care.